Hello, and welcome to my top 10 movies of the year of 2019. I know this is probably coming out kind of late, but I'm just trying to... I just wanted to make sure I got I finished the year and get everything in there before I start making the list. Just wanted to get that out of the way. So, real quick, I'm going to be making this and a few other lists. I don't know if I'm going to have them all posted at the same time or really close to the same time or something like that. Also, I think I'm going to be putting this on a new channel. So, if you're seeing this, it's not on my gaming channel. It'll be on a separate channel, assuming I go through with that. Anyway, just to get some clarifications out of the way, this is going to be movies that I watched in 2019. Not necessarily movies that were released in 2019. I think there's only one movie that I saw on here that wasn't released in 2019. So they were mostly good movies, mostly new movies, and only one of them wasn't. And two of the I think all three of the honorable mentions weren't released in 2019. Yeah, but everything else, the other 9 selections on here, were 2019. And if some movie that was like highly acclaimed and should be on the list isn't on here, I didn't see it. But hey, it could be in my 2020 lists, assuming I see it that year, or if I don't see it throughout this next year at some point, maybe 2021 or sometime in the future. Just when I see it, it'll be on the list, assuming I put it there because I liked it, assumingly. Anyway, let's get started with number 10, Joker. So, a lot of people really, really love this movie, and I liked it a lot. I didn't love it. I think the first half, maybe 2/3 of the movie were honestly not that good. Maybe a 4 out of 10 overall. But that last third of the movie was fantastic and was like a 9.5 out of 10 overall. And they kind of even out to make a pretty good movie, I'd say. Maybe 7 to 8 overall out of 10. It's pretty good. There's a lot of social commentary, but I've already talked a bit about this movie already, so I'm not going to get into that. Let's just get on with the list. To number 9, Frozen 2. I think that this was a slight improvement over the first one. And I think that everything that happened with Elsa, well, not everything, but a lot of the things that happened with Elsa and just the general story overall were a lot better. But I do think they kind of did disservices to like every character but Elsa. I don't know what it was, but like Kristoff, Anna, everybody else, they all felt just a little bit less interesting, a little bit less funny than they were in the first movie. But I do think this movie was overall pretty good. I was kind of surprised. So let's move on to number 8. Sorry, misspoke. Spider-Man: Far From Home. This was a really, really solid MCU outing, and it's the last one until we get new movies coming for the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is kind of the ending point, and what an ending point it was with the... oh crap, I forgot to put a spoiler warning at the beginning of the video, but oh well, there will be spoilers in this. I'll try not to spoil. I'm not trying to go too deep into any of these movies, just give a little bit of a reasoning of why I put them there. Anyway, I think this movie was improved over the first Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, because like they both had this kind of high school chill attitude about them, and it worked well for comedy, but like it kind of killed suspense and stakes. Even whenever serious things were happening, it didn't feel that important, per se, for both movies. Although I do think this one, by having a lot more villain-centered narrative, I think, with Mysterio being a lot more present than the Vulture was in the first movie. And, by the fact that Peter has to do it all himself now, while the first movie was just about him going to prom. While this time he's actually having to face a supervillain threat and not just happening upon it, But anyway, it feels like he's a lot more central to making things happen instead of just happening to be there. But yeah, it was a pretty good movie. Like, it's pretty solid. I don't think it's gonna be like top 5 MCU or anything like that, but like, it's definitely solid. It's a very good movie. So let's move on to number 7, Steven Universe the movie. This was a really, really fun follow-up to the show. It unfortunately started out with a few of the problems that it had that the show had as it ended the series, which I'll get onto that whenever I make in the video that I do about the various TV shows, so go check out that, because I'm going to talk a little bit about where Steven went wrong. Even though it was still great, it could have been a lot better. Anyway, the movie was a lot of fun, and like, oh god, it's been a few months since I've seen it, but I still, like, just at random moments, I'll just be like caught thinking about Spinell and like everything that happened, and just be like, damn, the feels, and just damn. And like, I think it like ended a bit surprisingly too cleanly, of just like, hey, let's take this problem and take this problem, put them together, problems taken care of. But like, besides that, I think it was a lot of fun. It was like really interesting to like look at all of these old characters that we love in new lights. I just kind of wish that there were some characters that weren't sidelined as much. Like, you barely see Connie at all, you know, etc. Anyway, it was overall pretty good. Kind of jumping up a bit to movies that I think go beyond pretty good to actually being genuinely great. We've got number 6 on my list, Toy Story 4. I'll be honest, I don't get the hype for the Toy Story series. Hear me out. I do like all 4 of these movies. I do think they're all 4 really good movies. But I think that the first 3 are given like this place of, well, I mean 1 and 3 at least. 2 I think has kind of gotten the kind of respect it deserves. I think it's a lot better than the first 1 and 3rd one, honestly. Anyway, and I don't even have particular reasons, I just like it. Anyway, I think that like the first and 3rd movies are given such high pedestals that I'm just like, it wasn't that great. You know, like, it wasn't fantastic. They're just really good movies. To me, at least. This is opinions, of course. But I think Toy Story 4 might have been the best of the series. And let me handle the elephant in the room. It is completely unnecessary. They could have not made this movie at all, and things would have just been just fine. Ending where they did in Toy Story 3. But ending here, it did, like, somehow find a way to give a good ending still, without, like, compromising the ending of the 3rd movie. Which I think is such an incredible feat. You take a finished series that can remain where it is, not even open up a new thread, but like handle a thread that we didn't even realize was still open, and close it without actually ruining anything. It's just, I really liked it. And it did a really good job doing something that should have been really difficult to do. So let's move on to number 5, How to Train Your Dragon 3. So, just gonna preface this, it was not as good as the first 2. But damn was it good. This whole trilogy is like one of the best trilogies of anything, period. This How to Train Your Dragon trilogy is so good. And I think this one is kind of... he might just barely be the strongest villain, but it's also like kind of the weakest from the protagonist point of view. Like, you know, they do the least with Hiccup and Toothless in this time around. And I'm not too interested in the romance plot, besides the fact that, you know, Toothless and the White Fury are fucking adorable. But besides that, I'm not that invested. But overall, like, especially the ending of the movie was so damn good. It's just really, really good movie. So let's move on to number 4, which is the only one that's not from 2019 that I saw in 2019, which is A Quiet Place, which I think was from 2018, I think. Which, by the way, just saw the trailers coming out for A Quiet Place 2. That looks like it's going to be really good. Anyway, A Quiet Place was honestly not what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a more generic plot. I thought it was going to be like them ending up in some situation where they're facing these monsters, like what it kind of shows in the trailer. I thought we were going to see more of like it happening instead of seeing them a certain amount of time after they've been living this way already with these monsters that go based on sound. And like I kind of predicted the plot as soon as I realized that the mother was pregnant. I knew immediately where the movie was heading. And I was like picking it up story beat for story beat. And I'm just sitting here like, yep, knew that was gonna happen. Saw this coming. Yep. But even though I knew where it was heading, I thought where it was heading was really good, and it did a good job executing that. It did a really good job of making a good movie. So number 3 on the list, Ad Astra. Man, was this such a good like character study movie, and like visually it was stunning. I loved it. Like it was kind of, I can understand why somebody might be bored at some parts, or why they might be like looking for more of like an action movie where it could have been. And honestly, I was kind of surprised it had as much action as it did. But man, it was so good. And like it was Brad Pitt, right? I'm pretty sure it was Brad Pitt. Yeah, Brad Pitt did a great job in the movie. Tommy Lee Jones was a phenomenal job as his father, of being like surprisingly chilling, because he's usually just a kind of gruff character, the two he usually plays. Like this, he was just downright chilling at times. So number 2, and this one will probably be the one that ends up taking up more time than the rest, Avengers Endgame. Man, I can't. There's so much to process with this movie, even months after it came out. Like, Jesus. It's not a perfect movie. Hell, it's number 2 on the list. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie by any means. And, there's a lot of things that honestly are kind of big plot holes in it. But, like, where it's good, it's phenomenal. And where it's bad, it's not that bad. Like, a lot of people keep bringing up the middle of the movie of like, oh, that's where the pacing, but it's like, even then, it's like, in like the top 8 Marvel movies, even if you just have the bad parts. But like, God, that final 40 minutes or so of the movie are so ridiculously good. Like, I don't think any movie might have ever had a more great 40 minutes of action than that. Well, besides the fact that like Infinity War was like a full movie of intense action, but like, yeah, besides, you get my point. Like the last 40 minutes were phenomenal. But the biggest problem with Avengers Endgame, though, was probably the time travel aspects, which I think it could have been done well if they had stuck to the rules that they had set out in the beginning of the movie. Like, whenever they explained it in the beginning of the movie, the way that it worked to them, I thought was actually really cool, and I thought that it was, if they'd done it how they said they would, it would have been phenomenal, but they didn't follow the rules they set up, and it kind of bit them in the foot by just like creating problems that they didn't need to have, and just creating a bunch of tangents that they didn't need in the movie when they could have avoided by just not having that in the plot for some reason. And I will say one thing real quick. I love that like so much of the trailer before the movie, so much that you see before the movie, of like how like, oh man, what's gonna be in this movie and like what's going on. I can kind of predict the plot. I love that so much of what you see in the trailers was actually just like the first 15 minutes of the movie, and they get that out of the way, and you're just like left floored after spoilers. They kill Thanos, but he's already destroyed the Infinity Stones, and you're just like, what the fuck? Everything that I thought was going to happen is completely out the window. But like, there's more to come, because there's still a full movie ahead of you, and Thanos shows up in other places in the trailer. But anyway, my jaw was on the floor with just the fact that they had the balls to take all their trailer and just shove it and just like say fuck you to the audience. You thought you knew what you were in for? Nah, you got more coming. But anyway, before I go on to number one, I'll just talk about my honorable mentions real quick. Just mention them. And keep in mind, again, this is movies that I saw in 2019, not movies that released in 2019. So first up is Her, which was the movie that about who was it? Joaquin Phoenix getting in a relationship with his phone, pretty much. And it was pretty good. Next up is Solo, a Star Wars story. It's pretty good. Pretty good. It's a popcorn flick. And the third one is Grave of the Fireflies, which was... I need to watch more Miyazaki films, because they're always, like, really, really hit you. But anyway, on to number one for the year of 2019, which I saw at the very beginning of the year, like right in January, a year ago, at the very beginning. And I knew it was going to be the best movie of the year, unless Endgame somehow passed it up. But, you know, it was going to be really hard to pass up, because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was so damn good. I cannot emphasize enough how ridiculously good this movie is. From the visuals, to the action, to the characters, to the story, everything was just, like, amazing. I don't know how they pulled it off so well. Because, like, I love Spider-Man, but, like, none of his movies have been, like, top tier. Like, even Spider-Man 2. I know some people, like, love it to death, and I completely see why. But, like, to me, it might be the best movie besides Spider-Verse, but, it's still, like, just a pretty good movie to me. But this was the first movie that I'm genuinely like, yeah, this is the Spider-Man movie. And it's such a shame that we don't get one for Peter Parker, but, like, Miles Morales took that standard and lifted it so damn high. It was such a good movie. And, you know, seeing all the different Spider characters, you know, like Gwen, Spider-Pig, Spider-Noir, etc., and of course, Peter B. Parker. Well, I guess now I think about it, he does kind of get his own shining moment. Peter Parker, I mean, with Peter B. Parker in this movie. Anyway, that was it was the best movie of the year for sure. It might honestly, it's in that contention of being number one. I think it might have the spot over my favorite superhero movie in general, because, you know, it's got to compete with Infinity War, Logan, and Dark Knight for me, but, like, I think it might have them all beat, although it's, of course, a very close race. But just, God, it's good. It's so good. And this video has gone on long enough. I will end it here. I will see you all in one of these other videos, I'm assuming. This one's probably going to be the one I post first. I don't know. Anyway, see you all then. Subscribe if you haven't. This new channel probably won't have much yet. Nowhere near what my gaming channel does, I'm sure. So please subscribe. Thank you. Bye.